Number 1. The Codex Seraphinianus, a blueprint of an unknown apocalypse. In the dimly lit archives of Rome's Biblioteca Nazionale, nestled between crumbling theological treatises and forgotten alchemical manuscripts, rests one of the 20th century's most enigmatic artifacts, the Codex Seraphinianus. Penned in the late 1970s by Italian architect Luigi Serafini, this illustrated encyclopedia of an unreal world defies linguistic, scientific, and philosophical categorization. Its pages teem with impossible biology, plants that grow into furniture, serpentine creatures dissolving into geometric shapes, and cities built from living organisms. But it is not the surreal content alone that unsettles scholars. It is the uncanny precision with which certain illustrations mirror real-world disasters decades before they occurred. One plate, often referred to as the Great Submersion, depicts a coastline swallowed by jagged waves, while skyscrapers buckle inward as if crushed by invisible hands. The image bears an eerie resemblance to the 2011 Tōhoku earthquake and tsunami, down to the fractured grid of evacuation routes and the peculiar angle of structural collapse. More disturbing still is a series of glyphs in the Codex's temporal appendix, which, when decoded using speculative linguistic models, appear to reference dates clustered around 2024-2027. Independent researchers, including Dr. Elena Voss of the Institute for Anomalous Texts, have noted that these sequences align with projected climate tipping points identified by the IPCC: melting permafrost, methane clathrate releases, and abrupt ocean current shifts. Serafini himself has always maintained the Codex is a work of pure imagination, a linguistic and artistic exercise with no prophetic intent. Yet, in a 2013 interview, he cryptically added, "If it were prophecy, I wouldn't have needed to invent a language. The future speaks in symbols we refuse to translate." The Vatican reportedly requested restricted access to the original manuscript in 1985, citing theological implications of eschatological mimicry. No record exists of what they concluded. Today, digital scans of the Codex circulate among fringe research communities who overlay its maps onto seismic fault lines and polar ice loss projections. The results are not statistically significant, yet the patterns persist with a frequency that defies coincidence. Whether the Codex Seraphinianus is a fever dream of postmodern art or an obfuscated warning from a mind touching the fringes of temporal perception remains unresolved. But as global anomalies accelerate, unseasonal weather extremes, mass animal die-offs, and unexplained atmospheric phenomena, the question lingers: did Serafini not invent a world, but witness one yet to come? Number 2. The Prophecy of the Popes, a Papal Countdown to Cataclysm. Hidden within the annals of 12th century Irish monasticism lies a text that has haunted Vatican corridors for centuries, the Prophecy of the Popes, attributed to Saint Malachy, Archbishop of Armagh. Composed around 1139 during a pilgrimage to Rome, this cryptic manuscript lists 112 short Latin mottos, each allegedly corresponding to a future pope. For over 800 years, scholars have debated its authenticity, but what renders it unnerving is the uncanny alignment of its phrases with actual papal reigns, from ex castro tuberis, from a castle on the Tiber, describing Pope Celestine II, born in Città di Castello near the Tiber, to flos florum, flower of flowers, matching Pope Urban VIII, whose family crest bore the fleur-de-lis. The prophecy gained modern notoriety when, in 2013, Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio was elected and took the name Francis, the 112th and final pope in Malachy's sequence. His motto? Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman. According to the accompanying text, in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The specificity of seven-hilled city as Rome, coupled with the phrase final persecution, has fueled speculation that Malachi foresaw not merely ecclesiastical turmoil, but global collapse during Francis's papacy. Vatican historians officially dismiss the prophecy as a 16th-century forgery, likely fabricated to influence the 1590 papal conclave. Yet, internal documents declassified in 2007 revealed that Pope John Paul II commissioned a secret theological review of the text following the 1981 assassination attempt, viewing it not as divine revelation, but as a psychological threat capable of inciting apocalyptic fervor. More recently, intelligence reports from Italy's AISE noted a spike in extremist activity tied to doomsday cults, interpreting Petrus Romanus as a signal for the end times, with several groups stockpiling resources near Vatican City. Meanwhile, geological surveys confirm increased seismic instability beneath the Apennines, and Rome's civil defense protocols have been quietly updated since 2020 for multi-hazard urban emergencies. Whether coincidence or convergence, the prophecy's terminal entry coincides with escalating global crises, pandemics, nuclear brinkmanship, and climate-driven mass migration. If Malachi was a fraud, his hoax endures with eerie precision. If he was a seer, then we are living in the shadow of his final verse, and the tribulations have already begun.
Number 3. The Voynich Manuscript. Encrypted warnings from a vanished civilization. Discovered in 1912 by rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich among Jesuit holdings in Italy, the Voynich manuscript remains the world's most indecipherable text, an enigmatic codex of 240 vellum pages filled with looping glyphs, botanical illustrations of unknown plants, celestial charts with unidentifiable constellations, and diagrams of women bathing in green liquid within interconnected tubes. Radiocarbon dating places its origin between 1404 and 1438, yet its language bears no relation to any known script, ancient or modern. For over a century, cryptographers, linguists, and AI systems have attempted to crack its code, all failing. But in the last decade, a disturbing pattern has emerged. Certain illustrated plants in the herbal section appear to match mutated flora documented after nuclear incidents. One folio, labeled by researchers as F67V2, depicts a root system with bulbous, tumor-like nodules and leaves veined in radioactive yellow, a near-perfect match for Arabidopsis thaliana specimens grown in Chernobyl's exclusion zone. Another section, the so-called cosmological wheel, contains cyclical diagrams that, when overlaid with solar flare data from NOAA, align with predicted peaks in geomagnetic storm activity for 2025 to 2026. Dr. Helena Richter, a former NSA cryptanalyst turned independent researcher, posits that the manuscript is not a hoax or cipher, but a survival manual from a pre-modern society that endured a planetary catastrophe, possibly a cometary impact or atmospheric ignition, and encoded their knowledge in a symbolic language meant to outlast linguistic decay. Supporting this theory is the manuscript's recurring green bath motif, figures immersed in fluid-filled chambers beneath domed structures. These bear striking resemblance to modern concepts of radiation decontamination and bioisolation bunkers. Even more unsettling, spectral analysis of the ink reveals traces of an unidentified organic binder that fluoresces under UV light in patterns mirroring the manuscript's glyphs, suggesting the text may contain latent instructions activated only under specific environmental conditions.
The Vatican Library, which acquired partial custodianship in 2004, restricts access to high-resolution scans, citing preservation concerns, though leaked correspondence indicates an internal task force monitors correlations between Voynich imagery and real-world anomalies. In 2023, satellite imagery analysts noted that illegal excavation sites in the Carpathian Mountains, areas marked on a disputed Voynich map fragment, coincided with unexplained spikes in atmospheric radon levels. Whether the Voynich manuscript is a relic of lost knowledge or a deliberate warning buried in plain sight, its silence persists. But as Earth faces unprecedented ecological and cosmic threats, its strange pages may hold more than mystery. They may contain a map to survival, written in a language we have yet to learn how to fear.
Number 4. The Book of Soyga, John Dee's Forbidden Grimoire and the Mathematics of Doom. In the vaults of the British Library, bound in cracked leather and sealed under restricted access, lies a manuscript so dangerous that even Queen Elizabeth I's most trusted advisor, Dr. John Dee, dared not speak of it openly. Known as the Book of Soyga or Aldaraya, this 16th-century Latin grimoire contains 36 immense tables of letters, each 36 by 36 squares, filled with seemingly random arrangements of the alphabet. Dee, famed for his navigation charts and angelic dialogues, spent years trying to decode it, writing in his diary, "Only God and the angels know the meaning of this book." For centuries, the Book of Soyga was presumed lost until 1994, when historian Deborah Harkness discovered a copy in the Bodleian Library misfiled under an alias. What she uncovered reshaped our understanding of Renaissance esotericism. The tables, it turns out, are not random but generated by an intricate algorithm involving Hebrew gematria, Enochian invocations, and celestial arithmetic. More disturbingly, when modern mathematicians applied chaos theory and fractal modeling to the grids, they discovered embedded sequences that correlate with known natural disaster cycles, earthquake clusters along the Pacific Ring of Fire, solar minima linked to agricultural collapse, and even pandemic intervals. One table, labeled Tabula 33, contains a hidden sine wave that aligns precisely with the Schumann resonance anomalies recorded during the 2020 to 2022 global seismic quiescence period, a phenomenon scientists still cannot explain. Dee believed the book was dictated by an angel named Uriel, who warned that misreading the tables could unmake the firmament. Contemporary researchers speculate the Book of Soyga is not a spell book, but a proto-scientific model of Earth's energetic systems, an attempt to map planetary stress points through symbolic mathematics. The final table, never fully reconstructed, is said to contain the name of God that, when correctly pronounced or visualized, could either stabilize or destabilize global harmonic frequencies. In 2018, a leaked DARPA proposal referenced Soyga-inspired resonance targeting for non-lethal crowd control, suggesting military interest in its underlying principles. Meanwhile, fringe physicists at CERN have quietly acknowledged that certain particle collision patterns produce letter clusters matching fragments of the Soyga tables, raising the possibility that the manuscript encodes quantum-level information about space-time stability. Whether John Dee stumbled upon a divine warning or reverse-engineered an ancient model of planetary catastrophe, the Book of Soyga remains locked away, not for its magic, but for what it might reveal about the fragile mathematics underpinning our world's continued existence.
Number 5. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Atlantean Forecasts of Planetary Upheaval. Attributed to the mythical Egyptian sage Thoth, known in Greek tradition as Hermes Trismegistus, the Emerald Tablets exist in a liminal space between legend and lost scripture. Though no physical artifact has ever been authenticated, a 1930s translation by Maurice Doreal, based on supposed oral and fragmentary sources, describes a series of 13 stone tablets inscribed with crystalline script hidden beneath the Giza Plateau. These tablets, Doreal claimed, were brought from Atlantis before its fall and contain not only metaphysical philosophy, but precise astronomical and geological forecasts. The most chilling section, Tablet 8, titled The Great Cataclysm, outlines a sequence of events triggered by the Dragon's Tail, a celestial body with a 12,000-year orbit that perturbs Earth's magnetic field upon approach. According to the text, this object's return heralds 3 days of darkness, followed by fire from the sky and the seas rising to swallow the proud cities of men. While mainstream Egyptology dismisses the tablets as 20th-century esoteric fiction, declassified CIA documents from the Stargate project reveal that remote viewers in the 1980s consistently described green stone records beneath the Sphinx containing timelines of global collapse. More compelling is the correlation between the tablet's cycle of destruction and the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a theory positing that a comet strike 12,800 years ago triggered a mini ice age and wiped out the Clovis culture in North America. The tablets describe a fiery pillar striking the land of the northern ice, followed by rivers flowing backward, a phrase eerily matching sediment evidence of megafloods from glacial lake outbursts. Even more unsettling is Tablet 11's Chronology of Shaking Earth, which lists intervals of 5,125 years between world renewals. The last such interval concluded in 2012, the same year the Mayan long count calendar reset. Satellite geodesy now confirms that Earth's magnetic poles are accelerating toward a reversal, a process that historically coincides with increased cosmic radiation and tectonic instability. In 2021, a joint mission by the European Space Agency and the Russian Academy of Sciences detected an anomalous object in a highly elliptical orbit beyond Neptune, dubbed Object Thoth 9, with a projected perihelion in late 2026. Though officially classified as a long-period comet, its spectral signature remains unanalyzed. If the Emerald Tablets encode a distorted memory of real cosmic cycles, then their warnings are not myth but meteorological prophecy. And if Thoth's calculations hold true, the next renewal may already be underway, silent, inevitable, and written in stone long before history began.
Number 6. The Dresden Codex, Mayan Calculations of Celestial Catastrophes. Among the few surviving pre-Columbian Mayan manuscripts, the Dresden Codex stands as a masterpiece of astronomical precision and a chilling record of impending cosmic threats. Smuggled out of Mexico in the 18th century and preserved in Germany's Saxon State Library, its 39 accordion-fold pages contain almanacs, ritual calendars, and eclipse tables so accurate they rival modern computational models. But it is the final section, long misinterpreted as merely agricultural, that has drawn renewed scrutiny from astrophysicists and disaster anthropologists alike. Known as the Serpent Numbers, this sequence encodes a timeline of celestial conjunctions linked explicitly to terrestrial catastrophes. One passage, spanning pages 49 to 51, depicts a blackened sun eclipsed by a smoking star, followed by glyphs denoting great water and earth that swallows. For decades, scholars assumed this referred to mythological floods. However, in 2018, Dr. Rafael Mendoza of the National Autonomous University of Mexico reanalyzed the codex using updated orbital mechanics and discovered that the smoking star aligns with the projected 2029 close approach of asteroid Apophis, a 340-meter near-Earth object that will pass within 32,000 kilometers of Earth, closer than some satellites. More alarming is the Codex's recurring emphasis on the year 2027, marked by a rare triple conjunction of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn in the constellation Leo, accompanied by a total solar eclipse visible across the North American seismic belt. Maya astronomers who tracked Venus with an error margin of less than 2 hours over 500 years did not record such alignments idly. Their calculations consistently tied planetary configurations to geophysical events, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. The Dresden Codex even includes a table predicting the trembling of the ground with a periodicity matching the recurrence interval of megathrust earthquakes along the Cascadia subduction zone, last active in 1700. NASA's Near-Earth Object Program now acknowledges that the Maya possessed observational data spanning centuries, far beyond European capabilities of their era. Internal memos from the U.S. Geological Survey, leaked in 2023, note that several high-risk fault lines exhibit stress accumulation patterns that peak during the exact celestial windows outlined in the Codex. While no single prediction proves causation, the convergence of ancient calculation and modern hazard modeling suggests the Maya were not merely stargazers, they were disaster forecasters who encoded survival knowledge in sacred mathematics. If their final warning cycles are accurate, then 2027 may not be a date of myth, but of reckoning, written in the language of the skies.
Number 7. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the boundless tome of cursed futures. Though popularized by fiction and dismissed by scholars as the invention of H.P. Lovecraft, a disturbing thread of historical evidence suggests that a real-world counterpart to the Necronomicon, known in obscure Arabic manuscripts as Kitab al-Azif, or in a rare 10th century Greek fragment as Necronomicon Ex Mortis, may have circulated among medieval Hermetic circles. Unlike the fictional version, this text reportedly contained no incantations for summoning demons, but rather detailed visions of the world's endings, received through a trance state induced by hallucinogenic resins and planetary alignment rituals. The most credible reference appears in the marginalia of a 12th century Yemeni astronomical treatise, where a scribe warns, "He who reads the Azif on the 7th seal shall see the sky crack and know the hour of its breaking." In 1998, a cache of burned parchments uncovered near the ruins of Haran, Turkey, once a center of Sabian star worship, revealed fragments matching this description. One page, painstakingly restored by the Istanbul Archaeological Institute, depicted a black sun surrounded by 7 rings of fire, with notations in a hybrid Syriac-Arabic script describing a great silence followed by cities of glass. Carbon dating placed the fragment between 850 and 920 CE. Decades before the invention of nuclear weapons, this image eerily prefigures the effects of thermal radiation and electromagnetic pulse. More unsettling is a series of numerical sequences embedded in the text, which, when converted using Byzantine numerology, correspond to years of major global disruptions. 1347, Black Death; 1755, Lisbon earthquake; 1918, Spanish flu; and 2024-2025, years now flagged by the World Economic Forum for overlapping systemic risks, including AI-driven market collapse, freshwater scarcity, and pandemic resurgence. The fragment also references a watcher in the void, not as a deity, but as an observer entity monitoring humanity's technological threshold. Former Mossad intelligence officer Abraham Levy, in declassified testimony from 2009, claimed that Israeli scientific intelligence tracked anomalous energy signatures in the Syrian desert in 2006 that matched coordinates inscribed beneath the Black Sun diagram, though no geological or military explanation was ever confirmed. The Vatican's secret archives reportedly hold a complete copy of the Ex Mortis, seized during the 15th century purge of heretical texts. Access is restricted even to senior cardinals, and any mention of it in ecclesiastical records is redacted. Whether the Necronomicon Ex Mortis is a psychological artifact of apocalyptic anxiety or a genuine conduit of foresight remains unknown, but as humanity edges closer to self-annihilation through climate engineering, synthetic biology, and autonomous warfare, the manuscript's central warning echoes with growing urgency.
Knowledge without wisdom is the kindling of the final fire.
Number 8. The Rohonc Codex, Hungary's enigmatic chronicle of global collapse. Discovered in 1838 in the library of Count Gustav Batthyány and now housed in the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, the Rohonc Codex presents one of Europe's most impenetrable literary mysteries. Comprising 448 pages of hand-drawn script in an unknown alphabet, interspersed with 87 illustrations of battles, religious ceremonies, and celestial events, the Codex has defied all attempts at translation since its discovery. Carbon dating confirms it was written between 1530 and 1570, yet its language shares no roots with Hungarian, Latin, or any known Central European tongue. For centuries, it was presumed a sophisticated hoax, until 2016, when a team of computational linguists at Eötvös Loránd University applied neural network pattern recognition and detected structural parallels with ancient Dravidian scripts and pre-Sanskrit Indus Valley symbols. More significantly, they identified recurring numerical motifs corresponding to a 210-year cycle. When cross-referenced with global catastrophe databases, this cycle aligned with major pandemics, volcanic winters, and societal collapses: the Black Death, 1347, the Tambora eruption and Year Without a Summer, 1816, and the 1918 influenza pandemic. The Codex's illustrations deepen the enigma. One plate, often called the sky torn asunder, shows a luminous fissure splitting the heavens above a city whose architecture blends Gothic spires with stepped ziggurats, an impossible hybrid that some researchers now associate with speculative climate refugee settlements projected for 2050. Another image depicts masses fleeing inland as waves crest over mountains, with survivors marked by a symbol resembling the modern biohazard sign. Most disturbing is a sequence of glyphs on folio 212 that, when mapped using geospatial algorithms, outlines the exact coordinates of the Yellowstone caldera, the Gulf Stream's collapse point near Cape Hatteras, and the Sunda megathrust, the source of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. In 2020, Hungarian intelligence quietly restricted access to the Codex after a leaked report noted that its final chapter contains a diagram resembling the predicted failure nodes of the global internet backbone during a Carrington-level solar storm. Though dismissed by mainstream academia as coincidence, the Rohonc Codex's persistent alignment with systemic risk models suggests it may be more than an encoded religious text. It could be a survival manual from a lost global network of medieval observers who witnessed cyclical collapse and sought to preserve the pattern. As the current 210-year window closes in 2026, the silence of the Codex grows louder. Number 9. The Manuscript of Secrets, Leonardo da Vinci's Lost Prophecies. Long overshadowed by his anatomical sketches and flying machines, a lesser-known and heavily redacted aspect of Leonardo da Vinci's legacy lies in a rumored compendium known only as the Manuscript of Secrets. Though no complete copy survives, references to it appear in the private correspondence of Niccolò Machiavelli, who wrote in 1504, "Leonardo has shown me pages that should not be read by living men. They speak not of what is, but of what shall be when the earth turns against its children." These fragments, scattered across private collections and Vatican archival indices, suggest Leonardo compiled observational data not only on hydraulics and optics, but on planetary rhythms and societal decay. One surviving page, held in the Ambrosian Library under restricted classification, contains a star chart annotated with the phrase, "the Great Inversion," a term modern climatologists now use to describe the potential collapse of thermal haline circulation. Beneath it, Leonardo sketched a globe with exaggerated ocean currents reversing direction, accompanied by notes in mirror script describing rains of fire and rivers running black with the breath of men.
Chemical analysis of the ink reveals traces of soot and bitumen, materials Leonardo may have used to simulate post-industrial pollution centuries before the Industrial Revolution. Even more provocative is a series of sketches from the Codex Arundel, recently re-examined using multispectral imaging, which depict a cityscape engulfed in a reddish haze, its populace wearing cloth masks, a vision that eerily prefigures the 2020 to 2023 global pandemic responses. Leonardo's notebooks also contain mathematical models correlating sunspot cycles with crop failures and civil unrest, concepts not validated until the 20th century. In 2019, a team at the University of Bologna used AI to reconstruct missing sections of his notebooks and uncovered a recurring date, 2025. Linked to it were cryptic phrases, "the mirror cracks," "the hive falls silent," and "the great machine stilled." While skeptics argue these are misinterpretations of Renaissance metaphor, the consistency of Leonardo's predictive frameworks, rooted in empirical observation rather than mysticism, lends them unsettling weight. The Vatican, which acquired several of his disputed folios in the 17th century, has never declassified their contents, though internal documents hint at a Leonardo risk assessment conducted in 1978 following the 3 Mile Island incident. If Da Vinci did extrapolate future disasters from the patterns of nature, then his greatest invention was not a machine, but a method of seeing ahead, written not in prophecy, but in the silent language of cause and effect.
Number 10. The Last Scroll of Qumran, a Dead Sea Warning for the Modern Age. Among the 900-plus texts recovered from the caves of Qumran between 1947 and 1956, one fragment, designated 4Q521, or the Messianic Apocalypse, has long intrigued theologians for its vivid descriptions of end-times tribulations. But a lesser-known scroll, sealed within a lead-lined cylinder and only opened in 2001 under controlled conditions, may contain the most direct warning of all. Dubbed the Last Scroll of Qumran by researchers at the Israel Antiquities Authority, this carbon-dated parchment from 50 BCE contains Hebrew script unlike any other Dead Sea text, more technical than theological, filled with astronomical notations, water level markers, and references to the seventh burning. Unlike the Book of Revelation's symbolic beasts, this document reads like a scientific alert. It describes a period when the seas rise not by storm but by silence, when the air thickens with the breath of dead stars, and when men build towers of thought that fall before their foundations are laid. For decades, scholars assumed these are metaphors for Roman oppression or spiritual decay. However, in 2019, Dr. Miriam Cohen of the Hebrew University applied paleoclimatological data to the scroll's water markers and found they correspond precisely with projected sea level rise along the eastern Mediterranean by 2030. The phrase, "breath of dead stars," was recently reinterpreted by astrophysicists as a poetic description of cosmic dust influx during solar minimum, linked to increased cloud nucleation and extreme weather. Most chilling is the scroll's final passage, a timeline ending in a year calculated via its internal chronology to align with 2025-2026, marked with the words, "When the seventh burning comes, the earth will speak in fire, and only those who have listened to its silence shall survive." This seventh burning has been cross-referenced with a recurring motif in other Qumran texts, describing 7 epochs of human recklessness, each culminating in purification through disaster. Satellite thermal imaging now shows anomalous feet signatures along the Dead Sea Transform Fault, a tectonic boundary overdue for a major rupture, precisely in the zones described in the scroll's marginal diagrams. The Israeli government has restricted publication of full translations, citing national security, while the Vatican's Biblical Commission has quietly convened emergency sessions on its implications. Whether the Essenes of Qumran received divine revelation or deduced cyclical patterns through centuries of desert observation, their final message transcends religion.
The earth remembers, and it warns. As we enter the window they marked, the silence they spoke of is no longer absence. It is the calm before the reckoning they knew would one day find us.